What's going on, everybody? Stux Moto here. Today it is a day where it's snowing, it's too cold to ride, but I still want to get a video out for you guys. So what we did is I had a clutch that I thought was going bad on my KTM XCF 350. It's a 2017. We pulled out the old clutch, we put in a new clutch, and keep in mind, I'm not certified, I'm not an expert. My buddy Zach, I give him the complete credit for this video and for his skills. He helped me, and so thank you so much for that, Zach. But anyways, I didn't record the voice through this video and taking these shots just because I wanted the video to be focused on us actually working, and so I'm gonna kind of add in as we go. So if you like the video, like, subscribe, share. I hope this helps you. Just keep in mind, once again, we're not professionals, so I'm not liable for you jacking up your own bike. So here we go. So the first thing we did was we laid the KTM on its left side. This kept us from having to drain the oil out, and we were able to take off the clutch plate, the clutch cover, the clutch plate, pull the springs, and pull all the friction plates and metal plates out without draining the oil. I recommend doing this, but if you need to change the oil anyways, you need to change the oil. I thought I had other issues, that's why I left the oil in there, because I changed it the day before thinking an oil change would help. It didn't. So I would recommend doing that if you want to save your oil. If not, just put fresh oil in. The next recommendation I have for you, and you kind of see it here in this video, is we cleaned up the outside before actually removing the clutch cover. We took a rag, a wet, warm rag, and we cleaned up and got rid of all the dirt. We got rid of all the debris, any excess oil. I recommend doing this so nothing falls into your clutch basket and gets your oil dirty and causes complications down the road. So after removing the clutch cover, the most outside cover of the clutch, we then loosened up. There are 5 or 6 bolts, I can't remember off the top of my head. We loosened them up in a star-shaped pattern, a couple cranks at a time. And the reason we did this was to keep the clutch plate level and keep from having too much stress on, the left side, the right side, top or bottom. So doing that in a star pattern loosens up the pressure evenly on the clutch plate. Once you get the clutch cover off and the clutch plate loosened up and the outside clutch plate bolts removed, you can remove the clutch plate cap. You'll want to take out the bolts, you'll take out the springs that are there holding that, and you'll want to remove that whole assembly. The next thing you'll want to do is start pulling out the metal plates and the friction plates. There'll be quite a few of them. Make sure you get them all. Once you get to the bottom, we had to take 2 picks and we stuck them in and grabbed and pulled out those last 2 or 3 friction and metal plates. Make sure you get all of them. I'm sure once you start putting them back in and you didn't get all of them, they wouldn't fit right. But I don't know, so just make sure you get all of them in the first go. Now, I know you probably ordered the clutch before taking the clutch apart. So when you get the new one in the mail, before taking your clutch apart and you just have a bike sitting around with an open clutch cover, 24 hours before you want to do this job, I would take the new clutch friction plates, put them in the oil, so like 10W40 with wet clutch protection for a 4-stroke in this case. So put them in a gallon plastic bag, kind of separate them out to the best of your ability. Put them in that bag, fill the bag with oil, and let them sit for 24 hours. I read online that it only takes 8. I did 24 hours, and my clutch turned out perfect, and it's so smooth. So do that beforehand for sure, at least 8 hours. All right, so once you have your friction plates, they've soaked for 24 hours, you start putting them back in, you take apart your clutch, you know, remove the clutch cover, etc. And you take out all your other old parts, just the friction plates and the metal plates. Once you take those out, you're gonna put the new ones in that have been soaking. You'll go metal plate, friction plate, metal plate, friction plate, metal plate, until you're completely out. You should start with the metal plate and you should end with the metal plate, with the friction plates and metal plates dividing at each layer. All right, once you get all your friction plates and metal plates in place and you've got all of them in there, you're gonna wanna put your clutch plate cover back on top of it. It should sit nice and smooth. It should look like everything lines up nice and neat. You'll wanna put your springs, your clutch springs in place, and then you'll wanna put your clutch bolts into those springs and kinda get them started. Just start them with your fingers only. That's all you need to do. So once you have them all started, every single bolt back in place with the springs and the clutch plate and everything together, you're gonna wanna tighten them down by hand. Don't use a wrench. Maybe a T-handle just so you can spin it. Do not use the actual T-handle part. So, that's a squeaky chair. So go ahead and in a star pattern so that we keep even pressure on the clutch plate, you'll wanna tighten all those up in a star pattern, just to take out that slack. That's all you want to do. You want to take out that slack so you don't have to use your torque wrench as much. So go ahead and take your T-handle or whatever you have. Don't tighten them up. Just get rid of that slack and do it in a star pattern so that you have nice, even compression when that plate goes down. Once you have all those bolts ran up somewhat close, I would say leave like that much of a gap, and that clutch plate is nice and level and flush, then you're gonna take a torque wrench. Don't quote me on this because I'm pulling it out of the top of my head on what I can remember, and we did this a week ago. So I think our math ended up being 52 inch-pounds on the torque wrench. Whatever motorcycle you're working on, make sure you go off the owner's manual. I pulled this up off the internet because I don't actually own the manual anymore. So figure out what it is, go get yourself a torque wrench and go half turns in a star-shaped pattern to every bolt until that torque wrench clicks. So half turn, half turn, half turn, in a star pattern. Eventually, you'll work those bolts nice and even. As that clutch plate goes down, you'll work it nice and slow until your torque wrench clicks. If you have the right settings on your torque wrench, you won't go too far and you won't go too low, and it'll be exactly how the OEM manual says you should do it. So I recommend doing it that way. I definitely recommend getting a torque wrench. They're only like 15 to 25 bucks for the inch-pounds at your nearest O'Reilly's or AutoZone. So make sure you do that. This is the most tedious part, but it is probably the most important and the one where you can probably do the most damage. Get a torque wrench, spend the money, make sure you do it right. When you're riding and you're using your clutch a ton, you'll know for sure that it's gonna hold. It's not too far, you didn't strip any bolts, you didn't break anything. So make sure you do that. That is key right there. All right, once you have taken your torque wrench and it's clicked on every single bolt in a star-shaped pattern that you've been doing the whole time, you can go ahead and put your clutch cover back on. You can tighten those bolts down. I'm pretty sure those have a torque spec too. I wasn't necessarily 100% worried about that because it's just the clutch cover. So I just took a T-handle, wrenched it down, found where the torque spec was, gave it 1 or 2 clicks, which they were all already at, and that's it. We then stood the bike up, we turned it over, we kicked it into first gear, you know, we kind of propped it up, kicked it into first gear, second gear. Everything seemed to be working perfectly great. Alright, so hopefully you liked this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, share. It'll really help me, and I'm only doing this as a hobby and for fun, so if I don't make it big, oh well. Hopefully this video finds somebody that needs it. When I was doing this, I was going to do it on my own. I looked for videos on YouTube. I didn't necessarily find anything I needed that would help me. So I know this is for the KTM XCF 350 2017, but I imagine most clutches are fairly similar from what I could tell. Like I said, I watched a couple other YouTube videos and nothing really gave me enough information that I needed, and I felt so lost just watching the videos that I wanted somebody that had done it before with me, and that's what I did. So hopefully this video gives you enough assurance that you can watch it, rewind it, play it again, and if you have any questions, put a comment below and I'll answer them as soon as they come up. So once again, like, subscribe, share, check out my other video, more videos to come.